Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host with another marvelous video. Did you guys know that the PlayStation 2 had games rolling out from 2000 all the way to 2013? That's a pretty long time, right? And guess what? It racked up a massive collection of over 4,000 games. And the fun fact is that nearly half of these games were exclusive to Japan. They never even hit the shelves elsewhere. With so many games, it's no wonder that some of the coolest PS2 titles never saw the light of day outside Japan. Yep, even the best-selling console ever has a few hidden gems that might surprise the most hardcore gamers. So, in today's episode, we'll be talking about the top 30 Japanese PS2 games that are just butt-kicking epic. Without any further ado, let's jump straight into the video. Hungry Ghosts. Starting strong with Hungry Ghosts, a wild Japanese PS2 game from deep space, the guys who did Extermination. The brain behind it is Tokuro Fujiwara. Yeah, the same dude who created Ghosts and Goblins. Crazy, right? The game revolves around this eerie Buddhist concept of a hungry ghost. These are spirits stuck in the afterlife, basically suffering non-stop because of their past sins. Picture this: a large-bodied ghost with tiny limbs, a small mouth, and a twisted neck. Pretty creepy, right? That's the kind of vibe we're talking about. In the game, you're a warrior, male or female, your call, who ends up in the afterlife. You're on this boat with Death himself, who drops the bomb that you've killed a bunch of people and now their souls are pretty ticked off. Your mission? Navigate through this ghost-filled village, face your past deeds and hopefully get a shot at redemption or, well, eternal damnation. Hungry Ghosts is all about that first-person horror action. It's super vast, but man, getting used to the controls is a bit of a ride. They've got this King's Field vibe, but with a twist. You gotta physically interact with everything using the right analog stick, like pushing doors open, grabbing items and fighting off spirits. It has this intense hands-on feel to everything you do. Chain Dive. Let me tell you about another pretty cool game called Chain Dive. This one's a bit of a hidden gem from the PS2 days. It's like if Bionic Commando went 3D before the 2009 reboot. So, you're this warrior named Shark, right? And you've got this unbreakable sword and a grappling hook called the Plasma Chain. Your mission is to defend the planet Elm from invaders, and get this, protect their many princesses. Classic hero stuff. The game is 3D, but it plays along a 2D axis, giving it a unique feel. The Plasma Chain is your best friend. You use it to swing around stages, using green orbs as grapple points. It's a bit tricky though. The physics are wild. Think slingshot vibes. Plus you can freeze enemies with your sword and then use them as grapple points. Chain kills to get your health back, which you'll need because the game is pretty fast-paced. This game stands out for its sheer exhilaration. It's not just another grappling game. The momentum-based gameplay and varied level objectives keep it fresh. It's a bit rough around the edges visually, but in motion, it's a whole other story. A mid-air ballet of destruction. And the boss battles? Epic in size and scale. The game might be short, but the replay value is there with time trials and combo trials. Plus, the connection to Alvian's later work on games like Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is super cool. Shadow Tower Abyss. Have you guys heard of Shadow Tower Abyss? It's this RPG from Software, the same folks who brought us Demon's Souls and the King's Field series. This game's a sequel to Shadow Tower, and man, it's got some cool stuff in it. So, you're exploring the Citadel from the original Shadow Tower, right? Well, you're on the hunt for this legendary spear that's supposed to have crazy powers. The kingdom's pretty much gone, covered by a forest, except for this massive tower. You get trapped inside by this mysterious old man and have to climb to the top to escape. Classic adventure vibes. This game's all first person, and you're wandering through this mix of catacombs, caverns, and open-air walkways. The game has around 500 weapons, and you can dual-wield stuff like a handgun and a dagger. The combat's intense. You can literally sever monster parts or snipe wings off flying enemies. Plus, you don't just level up in the usual RPG way. You grow stronger by destroying enemies and harvesting their souls. The soul harvesting growth mechanic of the game is super cool, giving you a real sense of becoming more powerful, and the variety of weapons keeps combat fresh and exciting. It's a shame it wasn't released outside Japan, but there's a fan translation from 2011 if you're itching to try it. Namco X Capcom. Next up, we have Namco X Capcom, which is this tactical RPG crossover game developed by Monolith Soft for the PS2, released in 2005. Think of a dream team-up between characters from Namco and Capcom franchises. The story is about these two characters, Renji Arisu and Xiaomu. They work for this paranormal investigative group called Shinra. and they're dealing with these crazy interdimensional rifts pulling characters from other realities into theirs. The main baddies are this chaos-loving group called Oma, led by Saya, who's like Xiaomu's arch-nemesis. The plot thickens when it's revealed that Oma's trying to resurrect this dark deity using these rifts. Reiji's dad fought this same battle a decade ago and had to sacrifice himself. In the end, Reiji and Xiaomu, with the help of their allies, managed to stop the deity and save the day. It's like a wild crossover episode of your favourite shows. This tactical RPG is mixed with real-time action. You control teams of characters on a grid-based map. It switches to this side view where your timed button presses dictate the combat moves. Characters can pair up or go solo, and they have different attack ranges. There's also a cool feature where successful attacks build up meters for special and multi-assault attacks. Plus, there's a whole level-up system based on experience points you gain in battles. Plus, the story is this epic crossover narrative that's just pure fun. It's a bummer it never got a release outside Japan, but it's still a gem for anyone who can appreciate the roster and get into the tactical gameplay. Golden Knight Garo. Golden Knight Garo is another PS2 game based on the Garo Tokusatsu TV show. It was dropped by Bandai back in 2006, only in Japan. So this game is set in the Garo universe, you know, with all that dark fantasy and epic knights vibe. The game's got different modes where you can jump into the boots of characters from the show, like Kuga Sejima or Tiger Sejima, and battle it out against various enemies and other knights. This game has a few modes to keep things interesting. There's the Garo Fanged Wolf mode and Dark Knight mode, where you get into the story and battles. Then there's the Versus mode. Pretty self-explanatory, right? You go head-to-head against another character. There's also this unique mode called the 500-year one-time disaster mode, which sounds like a special challenge. And of course, gallery and options to check out cool stuff and tweak your game settings. The game's got a decent roster of characters for Versus mode, including different versions of Garo, Zero, and other knights from enemies from the show. This is a solid pick for fans of the Garo series. You get to play as your favorite characters and dive into their world, which is pretty cool. The variety in gameplay modes adds some good replay value. And the limited edition of the game even came with a collectible Mado Fire recolor of the Zaruba ring, a neat bonus for hardcore fans. Kamizawa. Ooh, and this one's a gem. Kamizawa is the stealth game for the PS2 which was developed by Acquire and released back in 2006. Fast forward to 2022 and they dropped a remastered version, Kamizawa Way of the Thief, for PC, Switch and PS4. Though the game doesn't really follow an intricate storyline or anything, it's more about the gameplay experience, being all stealthy and sneaky. You're tiptoeing around, avoiding detection and pulling off slick moves. It's got that classic stealth game vibe. Think sneaking past guards, hiding in shadows. You know, that sort of thing. It's pretty much what you'd expect from a game focused on being as ninja-like as possible. For fans of the stealth genre, Kamizawa offers that pure, undiluted sneaking around experience. It's straightforward, no-nonsense stealth gameplay. The remastered version in 2022 polished up the visuals and brought the game to modern platforms, giving it a new lease on life. Just a heads up though, despite the cool concept, the remastered version didn't exactly wow the critics, landing on Metacritic's list of the 9th worst games in 2022. But hey, sometimes you gotta experience it yourself to really judge, right? Steam Boy. Remember Steam Boy? I'm sure a lot of us have played it. It's an action game based on the Katsuhiro Otomo anime. Released in 2005 by Bandai and developed by Sims, it's got that classic Japanese game charm. So, how does the story go? So, you're playing as James Ray Steam, this 13-year-old kid. He's caught up in this wild adventure because of this steam ball invention his granddad sent him. The whole game has him on the run, dodging people who are after this steam ball. The gameplay is an action-adventure setup. You're exploring through stages, using the steam ball for all kinds of cool abilities, like attacks and double jumps. The catch? You gotta power up your steam ball by collecting gears scattered around. It's a mix of dodging pursuers and powering up, which keeps things interesting. The game stands out on PS2 because of its tie-in with the anime, which is pretty awesome if you're a fan. Plus, the gameplay is solid, with the steam ball adding something unique to the usual action-adventure formula. Oh, and let's not forget that there's the whole aspect of collecting gears and powering up, adding a nice layer of thrill and strategy. Front Mission 5, Scars of the War. Alright, let me give you the rundown on Front Mission 5, Scars of the War. Released in 2005, it's the 5th main entry in the Front Mission series, developed and published by Square Enix. It's a tactical RPG that really dives deep into the world of mechs, known as wanzas. Now, let's check out the storyline. The storyline is super expansive, spanning 5 decades from 2070. It ties up all the loose ends from the entire Front Mission series. You follow USN soldier Walter Feng and his journey, starting from when Huffman Island gets opened for colonization. The game shows how the world changes, with nations forming unions and trying to handle global crises. Despite attempts at peace, new conflicts keep erupting, proving that mankind struggles to learn from its past mistakes. Walter's story intertwines with his childhood friends, Randy O'Neill and Glenn Duval, as they face the harsh realities of war and changing political landscapes. Coming to the gameplay, if you're into tactical RPGs, this one's a treat on the PS2. The gameplay borrows elements from previous Front Mission games, like action points and links. You'll be setting up your wanzas, gearing up for missions, and then jumping into battle. The battles are about strategic movements and making the most of your AP. There's this cool links feature where your units support each other in combat, and it's been streamlined to be even more engaging. Oh, and FYI, while the game is awesome, it can be a bit overwhelming if you've not played the earlier games in the series. But if you're up for a deep dive into tactical mech warfare and a rich story, well, this is your game. Kuma Uta. Here we have Kuma Uta, a totally out there game for the PS2, which is developed by Sony Interactive in 2003. It's one of those quirky, experimental Japanese games that you just can't help but be intrigued by. So, the star of the game is this polar bear who decides to ditch his chill life in the wild to become an enka singer. Enka is like this super emotional style of Japanese ballads, often seen as music for the older crowd. Picture this: a polar bear on 2 legs, dressed up, singing these deep, sentimental songs about life. Yeah, it's as wild as it sounds. Your job in the game is to help this bear, Kuma, hit it big on the music charts. You get to suggest topics for his songs. He writes the lyrics and you approve them. But surprise, none of the songs are pre-recorded. They're all created on the spot with a synthesized voice. It's a bit like early Vocaloid stuff, but with a polar bear and before Hatsune Miku became a thing. The gameplay isn't super intense. Nah, you're mostly just writing songs and listening to them. It's more about the experience and the novelty than hardcore gaming. What makes this one a standout title is how unique every element is. There's nothing else quite like it. The whole concept of a polar bear singing enka and climbing the music charts is just so out there. Plus, the whole synthesized singing thing was pretty ahead of its time. Definitely more of a cult classic than a mainstream hit. And if you don't know Japanese, well, some of the humor might go over your head, but the sheer absurdity of it all is something anyone can get a kick out of.
The Rumblefish.
The Rumblefish.
The Rumblefish. The Rumblefish is this cool 2D fighter game developed by Dimps in 2004. It first popped up in arcades on the Atomic Wave platform, then Sega brought it to the PS2 in 2005. And guess what? In 2020, some awesome folks even made a homebrew version for the Dreamcast. So the game is set in this futuristic 21st century. Right. There's been a massive disaster that's wrecked the eastern part of the country, causing all sorts of chaos. Then this corporation, Probe Nexus, comes in and builds this buzzing city called Zone Prime. That's where all the action happens. The game centers around this gritty underground tournament called the Fight for Survival in Zone Prime, where fighters from the slums duke it out. The game's unique 2D fighting system is super slick. You can chain weak attacks into stronger ones, and there's even a button just for dodging, which really spices up the fights. The power gauge is split into offense and defense, each with cool moves and techniques. The offense gauge fills up when you attack, letting you unleash some badass offensive arts, including this unblockable jolt attack. The defense gauge builds up when you block or get hit, allowing you to do defensive arts and impact breaks to flip the script on your opponent. And when both gauges are full, boom! You're in critical mode, unlocking each character's ultimate move. Plus, the graphics are top-notch. They used this advanced engine that animates each character's limb separately, making movement super fluid. And get this, characters show battle damage with the clothes tearing up during fights. Pretty neat, huh? It's kind of a bummer that it took so long for it to get a worldwide release, but hey, better late than never, right? Plus, with the enhanced version hitting modern platforms, it's getting the attention it deserves.
Decide the destiny.
Fist of the Northstar, Shinpan no Sosoze Kengo Retsuden. Fist of the Northstar is this badass 2D fighter developed by Arc System Works and produced by Sega. The game's PS2 version was released only in Japan in 2007, packed with a bonus DVD that's all about training and the history of the game. This game's based on the Fist of the Northstar manga, which means it's all about post-apocalyptic martial arts action. The characters and setting are straight from the manga, so if you're a fan, it's like stepping right into that world. The gameplay vibes are very similar to Guilty Gear, also from Arc System Works, but with some unique twists. There's this 7 stars of the Hokuto gauge under the life bar, and special moves can knock out these stars. Once they're all gone, your opponent can hit you with a fatal KO move that's an instant game ender. No matter your life bar, you regain stars each round, or if your opponent messes up their fatal KO attempt. Then there's the boost meter that lets you cancel moves and dash across the screen, which is key for pulling off wild combos. The aura gauge is for super moves and guard cancels. It's got 2 levels, blue and gold, and powers up your attacks big time, especially when your opponent is starless. Fist of the Northstar really stands out with its intense, fast-paced fighting and deep strategy. The whole star system adds a layer of tension because every move could lead to a quick defeat. Plus, the game looks and feels like the manga, which is super cool. Dodon, break, blow, fist or twist. Haha, Dodon, break, blow, fist or twist. We're talking about a pretty niche but a cool game, developed by Opus and published by ESP Software. It was released in Japan back in 2007 for the PS2. There's also Dodon, break, blow, the first game that came out in 2005. What sets it apart from a lot of other fighting games is its focus on realistic mixed martial arts style combat. Unlike the over-the-top flashy moves you see in most fighting games, Dodon, break, blow and its sequel Fist or Twist lean into more lifelike moves and techniques. It's all about the strategy and skill of real-world fighting, translated into a 3D game setting. For fans of MMA and more grounded fighting games, Dodon, break, blow, fist or twist is a treat. It's not every day you find a game that ditches the usual exaggerated style for something that feels more authentic and tactical. The 3D graphics also add a nice touch to the realistic approach, making the fights more immersive. It's a shame it only saw a release in Japan because it is definitely a unique take on the fighting game genre. If you're into more true-to-life martial arts action, well, this game's a total hidden gem. Initial D Special Stage. Initial D Special Stage for the PS2 is this killer racing game that's an enhanced port of the arcade game Initial D Arcade Stage. It's all about the thrill of Japanese street racing and drifting, the cool twist from the Initial D manga and anime series. So, there are 2 main modes in the game. In arcade mode, you get to pick from some of Japan's most iconic drift cars and take on various characters from the Initial D manga. Your goal is to beat every racer and climb your way to the top as the ultimate driver. As you progress, you earn points to upgrade your car, which is super satisfying. The second mode, Story Mode, puts you in the shoes of Takumi, the main character from Initial D. Here, you're playing through missions that follow the manga and anime storyline, racing against the same characters Takumi faced. The game nails the essence of street racing and drifting. You feel the rush of speeding down mountain roads, pulling off tight drifts, and edging past your opponents. The controls are tight, and there's a real sense of speed and adrenaline. Plus, the upgrade system in arcade mode adds a nice layer of depth, letting you tweak and improve your car to suit your racing style. Initial D Special Stage stands out because it captures the spirit of the Initial D series so well. It's not just a racing game, it's a racing game that lets you live out the high-speed duels of Takumi and the gang. If you're into cars, racing, or just the Initial D series, this game is a blast. It really makes you feel like you're part of that intense, drift-filled racing world. Ibara. Ibara is this super cool vertical shooter game that came out from Cave, a Japanese developer known for its intense shooting games. It hit arcades in 2005 and was ported to the PlayStation 2 in 2006. There's not a heavy plot going on in this game, which is pretty standard for arcade-style shooters. It's more about the action and the challenge. The game has this cool aesthetic that mixes old-school tech like biplanes with advanced machinery, giving it a unique retro-futuristic vibe. If you've played Battle Gregor or Battle Backraid, it'd definitely feel familiar. It's like a spiritual successor to those games. You've got the classic elements: medal collecting for scores, a power-up system, and earning bombs. The game also features this tricky rank system, where the difficulty ramps up as you do better, increasing the number of bullets you have to dodge. It gets insanely challenging, with bullet density going through the roof. But wait, there's a twist. The only way to lower your rank and ease the difficulty a bit less is to lose a life. In the Black Label version, you can also use bombs to cancel bullets and lower the rank, but it increases way faster. The game's style, with its hint of old and new tech, adds to its charm. Plus, the music and visuals are top-notch, making it a standout title in the PS2's Japanese library. So, if you're into games that challenge your reflexes and keep you on the edge of your seat, this game would have been perfect for you. Indonesia. Let's talk about this next game, Indonesia. This one's a super cool adventure game that was developed by Vanpool and published by Enix, released exclusively in Japan for the PS2 in 2001. It's actually Vanpool's debut game, and it shows off their creativity big time. The story's pretty quirky too. You play as a 5th grade boy who accidentally gets warped to this fictional island called Indonesia. To get back home, you need to communicate with the island's 50 sealed gods. But here's the cool part. You do this by using emo powers, which are based on your emotions and those around you. It's all about how you interact with the island and its inhabitants. This game stands out because of its gameplay mechanics. It's got this day and night cycle, plus different days of the week, and the island is stuck in a 10-day time loop. Your actions and the emo powers you use change depending on the time and day, which adds a whole layer of strategy to the game. You're not just exploring, you're also figuring out the best times to use certain powers and interact with characters. This one's a really different kind of adventure game. The whole concept of using emotions as powers is super innovative. Plus, the day-night cycle and time loop make for a dynamic and ever-changing gameplay experience. It's like you're on this never-ending mystical island vacation. Something I found really interesting is that the game's instruction manual was even designed like a travel pamphlet called Indonesia Airlines, complete with a map and photos from the game. It's like a little piece of the game's world you can hold in your hands. Gantz. Ready to kick alien butt and save the world? Well, imagine two high school dudes, Kai Kurono and Masaru Kato, get hit by a subway train while trying to save some drunk dude. Next thing they know, they're stuck in this creepy Tokyo apartment with a weird black sphere called Gantz. And guess what? They're not allowed to leave. Coming to the gameplay now? Okay, so in this game, you control Kurono and Kato, who've been given these crazy superpowers by Gantz. Your job? Take down aliens hiding on Earth. You get cool weapons, stealthy moves, and teamwork is key. Plus, your choices affect the storyline. It's like playing out your own manga adventure. Gantz nails this gritty, action-packed vibe you'd expect from a Japanese game. It's got everything from intense battles to moral dilemmas, just like flipping through a manga. And the gameplay? Whew, it's addictive too. You'll be hooked trying to save humanity from alien invasions. An absolute top-notch PS2 edition, and would definitely make it to your must-have playlist. Ace, Another Centuries Episode. Another Centuries Episode is an epic third-person shooter game released for the PS2 in 2005. It's like a mechs fan dream, man. Developed with the help of From Software, yeah, the Dark Souls guys, and published by Banpresto, this game brings together mechs from 9 different anime robot franchises. Set in the future, mankind's advanced enough to have colonies in space, but there's a lot of political and economic strife. To handle this chaos, the United Community of Earth, UCE, set up a special task force, the Londo Bell, to take down rebel groups. The game revolves around this new energy source called E2 that everyone's after. You're part of the Londo Bell, working to stop these groups from stealing E2. The story builds up to this massive showdown with the lead antagonist, Char Aznable, and ends with a twist that sets the stage for a new war. Coming to the gameplay, you get to pilot a mech from anime series like Aura Battler Dunbean and Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. Each mech has its own weapons and attack styles, which is super cool. The game's compared to Zone of the Enders. You're flying around in 3D environments, tackling various mission objectives that get tougher as you progress. You've got objectives like destroying enemy mechas, protecting buildings, and clearing minefields. Your mech can dash to dodge attacks, but you've got to manage your dash gauge. The weapon system is neat too. You've got machine guns and other firearms, with some weapons needing recharge and others having limited ammo. The variety of mechs and missions keeps the gameplay fresh and exciting. Plus, the involvement of From Software has that extra layer of polish and quality. The game's success even helped renew interest in some of the series it featured, which is pretty awesome. The The King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match. The King of Fighters 2002 Challenge to Ultimate Battle is a fighting game that really resonates with fans of the genre. KOF 2002 doesn't focus much on plot. It's all about the fighting. It brings together characters from various SNK franchises, making it a real treat for fans. You've got this massive roster of fighters from different backgrounds, and the game is all about pitting them against each other in team battles. The gameplay goes back to the series' roots with the 3-on-3 battle format, ditching the 4-on-4 striker match from the previous titles. It revives the power gauge system similar to what was in KOF 97, where you build up your gauge as you fight and perform special moves. Your team's position affects how many power gauges you can stock, like the first member can have up to 3, while the third can stock up to 5. There's also the max activation state that boosts your offense and defense and lets you cancel attacks into each other. Plus, you can get to use super special moves without consuming gauge stock in this state. KOF 2002 is celebrated for its huge character selection, fluid animation, and solid fighting mechanics. The return to the 3-on-3 format was a big hit with fans, and the tweaked power gauge system added a fresh layer of strategy to the fights. It's a game that gets you right into the action and keeps you hooked with its depth and variety. Later on, there was even a remake called The King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match, which expanded on this already great game, adding more characters and refining the gameplay. Dodon Pachi Dojo. Coming in hot is CX Dodon Pachi Dojo is the fourth game in Cave's Donpachi series. So, the game picks up after the events of Dodon Pachi. The Donpachi Corps, which was kind of a big deal, got sealed away on the moon. Fast forward 1,000 years and these robot armies led by Hibachi are stirring things up again, trying to wipe out humanity. The world's response? They bring back the Donpachi Corps with the help of these element dolls, basically sentient androids that boost the ship's power to take down this threat. The gameplay sticks to the series' roots but adds some cool twists. You've got this chaining system where blowing up enemies fills a meter, and you've got to keep destroying enemies to keep the chain going. The controls are similar to previous games, with shot laser dynamics and spread laser bombs. You get to choose from 2 ships, one with a narrow shot and the other with a wide shot. The element dolls are new. They power up your weapons in different ways. Plus, there's this hyper system where you build up a meter for extra firepower and score bonuses, which is pretty dope. Also, the different endings based on the element doll you choose add some cool replay value. It was a blast for anyone into bullet hell shooters. Autostars. Autostars sounds like a super creative puzzle game with a unique twist. You've got these 2 paper-thin characters, Saw and Mud, living in this world where everything's about building and developing a town. So, the whole game is set in this world called Autostars. You control Saw, who appears above this matrix of brown squares. Your job is to lay down icons of water, earth and wood in patterns to create houses and eventually whole neighborhoods. The game's got this cool visual style where, as you progress and build more, your constructions develop into larger buildings, even going as far as towers that shoot light into the sky. The gameplay is all about placing these icons in the right combination and at the right pace. The levels move slowly from left to right, and you have to build and develop your structures quickly enough so they reach their full potential before they fall off the map. It's fast-paced, filled with combos, and really puts a new spin on the puzzle genre. It's not just about matching stuff. It's about building something visually stunning while you're at it. Autostar stands out in the puzzle genre for its creative concept and visually appealing gameplay. The idea of building a town from scratch and watching it evolve in front of your eyes is super satisfying. Plus, the challenge of keeping up with the moving levels adds a nice layer of excitement and urgency to the game. Vib Ripple. Vib Ripple is this quirky and creative game developed by Nana Onsha and published by Sony Computer Entertainment, exclusively released in Japan for the PS2 in 2004. There's not a traditional plotline as such in Vib Ripple. Instead, it's more about the unique gameplay experience. You control Vibri, a vector-shaped rabbit from Vib Ribbon, and the game transforms photographs into interactive trampolines. Let's take a peek at the gameplay now. So, you're hopping around on these photo trampolines, trying to loosen up and collect these 2D items called Pater characters before time runs out. There's this helpful icon that gives you hints on where to jump on the photograph. The cool part is the interactive element. When you're close to an item, you hear drumming sounds and the controller vibrates. But watch out for the boonchies. If they catch you, Vibri devolves from rabbit to frog to worm, and you could end up with a game over. There's also a super Vibri form that lets you temporarily disable boonchies and see hidden items. One of the coolest features is that you could upload your own photos to create personalized stages. You could use a digital camera or cell phone to upload pics through the PS2's USB port or even send pictures online. The game scales them down to fit the format. The game really stands out because of its creativity and how it lets players interact with their own photographs in a game setting. Overall, a fun, unique experience. The way it uses sound and vibration to guide you is also pretty innovative. Fantasy Zone Complete Collection. Sega Ages 2500 Series Volume 33. Fantasy Zone Complete Collection is like a treasure trove for fans of the classic Fantasy Zone series. It's the final entry in the Sega Ages 2500 series for the PS2 and is packed with every Fantasy Zone game you could think of, plus some extra goodies. The Fantasy Zone series doesn't have a complex plot, it's more about the colourful, whimsical worlds and the addictive shoot-'em-up gameplay. You usually play as Opa, this cute little ship, flying around and blasting enemies in these vibrant psychedelic levels. This collection includes all the main games from the series, like the original Fantasy Zone, its sequels, and even some lesser-known titles like Fantasy Zone Gear and Galactic Protector. Each game has its own unique charm, but they all share the series' signature bright graphics and engaging shoot-'em-up action. The games are emulated, but there are extra options to tweak and improve them. There's also Fantasy Zone Neo Classic, an updated port of the Famicom version, and a remastered Fantasy Zone 2 that's made to look and feel like it's running on Sega System 16 hardware. This collection's amazing for how comprehensive it is. It's not just the games, it includes development material, concept art, cover art, manual scans, and flyer scans from different regions. It's like a history lesson in Fantasy Zone and a celebration of its legacy. The manual even contains commentary from the original developers, giving insights into the game's creation. Bust a Move. Dance Summit 2001. Next up, we have Bust a Move. Dance Summit 2000, which is this vibrant rhythm game from the same line as Buster Groove and Buster Groove 2. Developed by Metro Graphics and published by Enix, it dropped exclusively in Japan in November 2000. So, what's the plot? Well, it's less about a storyline and more about the thrill of the dance competition. The game focuses on both competition and collaboration within a team. You're aiming to become the #1 dancer in your team, proving your skills across various levels and challenges. The game offers 3 modes: Easy, Normal, and Mix, each escalating in difficulty. In Easy mode, you're just pressing any button in rhythm, while Normal mode steps it up with a combination of face and directional buttons. Mix mode is where it gets really tough, requiring all 8 buttons and sometimes pressing 2 simultaneously. The game has this cool dance energy bar you gotta keep full by nailing your combos, but watch out for the interludes that change the song's tempo to throw you off. This game's not just about hitting the right buttons, it's about doing it with style and syncing with your team. The game's energy is contagious, and the colourful graphics and catchy songs make it a really fun experience. It's a real bummer this game didn't make it outside Japan because it's a blast, especially if you're into rhythm games. This is really all about getting into the groove and feeling the music. Perfect for those gaming sessions where you just want to let loose and dance. Mushi Himama. Mushi Himama, or Bug Princess, was developed by Cave, and this game's a total adrenaline rush. It first popped up in arcades back in 2004, then made its way into the PlayStation 2 in 2005, and eventually spread its wings to a whole bunch of other platforms like iOS, Xbox 360, and even landed on the Nintendo Switch in 2021. The setting? It's this wild, untouched world where you've got these massive deserts that suddenly turn into these lush, dense forests. And let me tell you, these forests are crawling with giant bug-like creatures called Koju. The story centers around this girl, Riko, who's the daughter of some royal family. Due to this old pact, she's supposed to be sacrificed to these Koju creatures, but on her 15th birthday, things go south. Her village gets hit by this nasty miasma that's linked to the Koju, and she's like, nope, I'm not having it. So she hops onto this giant golden Koju beetle named Kiniro and heads into the forest. She's got this magical bracelet that lets her telepathically bond with Kiniro, and together they're off to confront the god of the Koju to save her people. Gameplay-wise, Mushi Himama is a manic shooter, so expect a crazy amount of bullets flying everywhere and loads of enemies to take down. The insect theme is super unique. You're fighting enemies that look like all sorts of beetles and butterflies, which makes for a pretty awesome aesthetic amidst all the bullet hell chaos. This game really stands out in the Japanese PS2 lineup. It's got intense gameplay, and the setting is just something else. The bullet patterns are wild, offering a real challenge, even for the hardcore shooter fans. Plus, the forest environments are stunning, and the insect-themed enemies? They're a mix of creative and just a bit creepy. If you're into games that are visually gorgeous and get your heart racing, Mushi Himama is totally your jam. Mahsukai Kurohime. Mahsukai Kurohime was cooked up by Tomy Corporation and hit the shelves in Japan back in 2006. What's neat is that it's all based on this manga by Masanori Ukamigumi Katakura, which honestly has a pretty wild story. The game centers around Kurohime, who, a decade before the manga kicks off, wraps up this huge war and tries to knock out the gods behind it. Not taking this lightly, the gods split her into two. Ouch. One part is her angry self, Himeko, and the other is all about her kind side. Now, Himeko, stuck as a little girl, is on this epic quest to get her original body and powers back to take on the gods once more. But here's the twist. She can only break the curse with love. Problem is, Kurohime isn't exactly the loving type. She's more self-centered and tricky. As the plot thickens, she starts learning about love, especially through her bond with this guy Zero, and goes through some major changes. Game-wise, Mahsukai Kurohime is a third-person action shooter. You are Kurohime, duking it out in an arena style that'll remind you of games like Virtual On or Armored Core. You get to blast through a bunch of smaller foes before facing off with the big boss enemies. Kurohime's got these regular bullets and supercharged magic bullets, but you gotta keep an eye on her magic meter since it needs time to recharge. There's also this cool free mode where you can play matches against the computer as different characters from the manga, like Zero and Onimaru. Pretty cool, isn't it? Sakurazaka Shai. Coming up next, we have this action-adventure firefighting game, Sakurazaka Shai, that was developed by Reijin and published by Irem, exclusively released in Japan in 2004. In the game, you're a firefighter, but it's not just about spraying water on flames. No, you're in charge of a whole squad of firefighters, and you get to command your team and support vehicles. It's all about coordinating everyone's efforts to rescue survivors from dangerous situations. But that's not all. There's also this detective-like mystery-solving element to it, which adds an extra layer of depth to the gameplay. You're on the ground, fighting fires directly, but a big part of the game is strategizing and directing your squad. You have to manage your team effectively, making sure everyone's in the right place at the right time to combat the blazes and save lives. This game's one of the most impressive and cleverly designed firefighting games out there. It goes beyond just the action of fighting fires. It makes you think like a real firefighter, coordinating a team and solving problems under pressure. The added mystery element keeps things interesting and adds a nice twist to the firefighting theme. Tales of Destiny. Tales of Destiny on the PS2 is a real gem. The plot? Well, it's like a classic fantasy adventure. You've got Starn, this regular guy who stumbles upon a talking sword, Dimlos. They team up, meet other cool sword wielders, and end up fighting against these forces trying to use an ancient relic for no good. The story's set in this world split between sky cities and the surface, with the history of a big war and these sentient swords, Swordians. It's like diving into a cool fantasy book. Gameplay-wise, it's super fun and engaging. Forget turn-based stuff, this game has got real-time action. You're on a 2D plane, slashing and casting spells, all in the heat of the moment. You can switch up your tactics, manage spells and special attacks, and even control your team's AI. It's fast and fun, and keeps you on your toes. So, what makes it such a good one for the PS2? Well, first off, the battle system is a total blast. It's like mixing an RPG with a side-scroller. The story and characters are top-notch, really drawing you in. The PS2 remake just makes everything look and feel better with smoother graphics and extra content. Yoshitsune Ayuden Shura. The story of hero Yoshitsune Shura. Yoshitsune Ayuden. The story of hero Yoshitsune is this epic hack-and-slash game developed by From Software for the PS2. It's based on the legendary samurai Minamoto no Yoshitsune and takes you deep into Japanese history and mythology. The game revolves around the life and battles of the legendary samurai Minamoto no Yoshitsune. You get to step into his shoes, experiencing the trials and tribulations of a samurai warrior from ancient Japan. It's like being part of a historical epic with all the drama and action of Yoshitsune's storied life. The developers blended elements of real-time strategy games with third-person 3D action, making for a unique gameplay experience. Think of it as something akin to Koei's Dynasty Warriors. You're not just hacking and slashing your way through enemies, you're also guiding troops across the battlefield, protecting them, and making strategic decisions in real time. It's got this great balance of action and tactics. Later, they released Yoshitsune Ayuden Shura, which added more content like new characters and levels, as well as two-player cooperative and competitive modes. This version brought even more depth and replayability to the game. The historical setting adds a lot of charm and authenticity, and the additional content in the shorter version makes it even better. Number 29. Mojib Ribbon. Mojib Ribbon is this unique music video game created by Masaya Matsuura, the genius behind Vib Ribbon. Released in 2003, it's a sort of a spin-off from Vib Ribbon and has a vibe similar to Matsuura's earlier Parappa series. In this game, you play as Mojibri, a character inspired by Vibri from Vib Ribbon. Mojibri is all about becoming a famous rapper and discovering the ultimate rap. It's a journey through music and rhythm, with a strong focus on rap and calligraphy. As the game progresses, Mojibri is joined by Mojiko and a giant robot named Ozorezan, 1999, each bringing their unique style to the gameplay. The gameplay is centered around Japanese kana calligraphy and rap lyrics. You guide Mojibri around a circle of clouds, with rap lyrics scrolling underneath. Your job is to dip Mojibri's brush in ink and then write the kana in time with the music. It's all about rhythm and timing, making sure you hit the beats and create the calligraphy as you go. The game's art style, based on traditional sumii, adds a beautiful visual element. The focus on rap makes it unique in the rhythm game genre, and the sumii art style is gorgeous. Despite being in Japanese, the gameplay is simple enough that even non-Japanese speakers can enjoy it, especially with a little help from online guides. Ninkyoden Toseinin Ichidaiki. Ninkyoden Toseinin Ichidaiki on PS2 is set in Japan and has this gritty underworld vibe. It's like you're stepping into the shoes of a character deeply involved in some intense and even shady stuff. The setting and characters scream classic Japanese storytelling. In the game, you're stepping into the shoes of Renji, a cool lone wolf kind of guy. He's been wandering all over Japan and in a twist of fate, saves a couple of strangers. This act of heroism lands him in the spotlight in Shakuba Machi, a place where everyone's got a problem and they think Renji can fix it. Your mission? Take down the bad guys, maintain your honor, and navigate tricky relationships. And hey, if you play your cards right and keep your chivalry score high, you might just rise to the top as the Daiyobin, the big boss of the town. Sounds like an epic adventure, right? The gameplay is also pretty engaging. It's got this old-school PS2 charm, with mechanics that seem to blend action with strategy. You can tell it's a game that requires some skill and thought, not just button mashing. It's like a throwback to the days when games were less about flashy graphics and more about solid, challenging gameplay. This game's a gem for those who love Japanese PS2 games. It's not just about the gameplay, it's the whole package. The setting, the story, the characters. All of this is like a slice of Japanese gaming history, offering an experience that's hard to find in modern games. Marvelous verdict. Alright everyone, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the treasure trove of Japanese PS2 games. We've explored everything from the front lines of Front Mission 5, Scars of the War, to the quirky beats of Mojib Ribbon. Each title brought its own charm, challenge, and a special way of immersing us in the heart of Japan's gaming culture. And let's not forget the intense showdowns in the Rumblefish or the aerial acrobats in Chain Dive. Thanks for tuning into this nostalgic journey with Marvelous Gamers. If you loved revisiting these iconic Japanese PS2 classics, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more amazing gaming content. Stay with us for more trips down memory lane and exciting explorations into the vast universe of video games. Until our next gaming adventure, keep your controllers ready and your gaming spirits high. There's always a new world to explore in the realm of video games.